If it feels like we've been here before, that's because we have, or at least pretty close. And it really wasn't that long ago either. I stood right here and I told you that if you had to spend too much time thinking about whether or not you needed a Chevy Suburban, then you probably didn't. If you have to stop and think about whether or not you need a Chevy Suburban, then chances are you probably don't. So what's different about this Tahoe? Well, aside from the fact that it's blue and about a foot shorter from bumper to bumper, not that much, at least not when it comes to price. There's also a whole lot less usable space inside, but I still think I would take this one over its big brother, and I'm about to tell you why. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about the rear-wheel drive base trim or the top-of-the-line high country. Chevy's kept it pretty simple when it comes to the price difference between these two. Take any Suburban trim, subtract $3,000, and boom, you've got yourself the same Tahoe. That's really not much money, especially if you're financing one of these, so I wouldn't let pricing sway you one way or another too much, but it does pose a bit of a problem with this one I'm driving. It's the high country with some extras, and it is $96,000 out the door before tax. That is no small chunk of change, but there is some good stuff here for the money. For starters, I love the combination of the magnetic ride control from this top trim and the optional air suspension. It is as supple as anything I have cruised around in. It really is the best of both worlds. Yes, this is still a truck-based SUV, so there's some of that longitudinal stiffness. When you're going over bumpy roads, you can feel it bucking back and forth just a little bit, and the same goes with the unsprung weight of the wheels. This one rides on massive 22s, so you can feel just a little bit of it pulsing through the steering wheel through some really big bumps. And speaking of the wheels, I do have one major problem with this one I'm testing. Chevy offers all kinds of wheel upgrades. So even though the high country trim does ride on 22s, you can upgrade them to a few different ones. These ones here, I love the look of them, but I did find out one dirty little secret about them. All those chrome inserts, yeah, they're plastic, like the same kind that hubcaps are made from. I would be so mad if I paid over $4,000 for a set of upgraded wheels to find out they had plastic in them. That is terrible. That is a big ripoff. I would be really mad. Keep in mind, that Suburban I just drove, that had the same thing. $4,000 wheel upgrade, but they were all alloys. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that does seem a little bit shady. Anyway, this is a winner in terms of ride quality, and the big reason why is the independent rear suspension that's new to this 2021 version of the Tahoe, and yes, the Suburban. No longer shares that solid rear axle with the Silverado, and it makes a major difference in the way this thing cruises around. It also makes a major difference in the way both people and stuff fit inside of this thing. And don't get me wrong, the last one was perfectly fine for getting the family down to Florida or even hauling a load of lumber back from the hardware store. But this new version is just better, plain and simple. And that suspension really is the big contributing factor because it's a lot more compact. So the space inside is way more usable. There's 300 liters more cargo room in the back with all 3 rows of seats upright and 10 inches more legroom in that third row, which is almost unbelievable, except I can sit back there with my camera guy, Will, sitting in front of me, and he's almost as tall as I am. But there is more to the story here, because when you go ahead and fold that third row, there's 600 liters more space than before, so just over 2,000 liters total. And then when you fold down the second row, there is 800 liters more than last time. It is amazing just how much space has been crammed inside this new Tahoe. All that means this Tahoe is more useful than ever before, and it's honestly a viable alternative to the Suburban for the first time. Now, don't get me wrong, that thing still dwarfs this both inside and out, but that's not my point. My point is that you can actually use this. You don't feel like you're sacrificing anything by going with the smaller one, and there's a huge benefit to that. You can actually fit it in your average parking space or maybe even a single car garage. You don't have to worry about having the nose sticking out into the aisle at the grocery store or circle the block a bunch while you look for a place place to parallel park. That to me is a huge benefit. It's only about 6 inches longer than your average minivan, so it's much more manageable than the Suburban. If you take a look at that thing, that's about 20 inches longer than a minivan. That's just a lot of vehicle to worry about, and honestly, I would much rather have something that's shorter. Now, it is still just as wide as the Suburban, so that might cause you some trouble around town, especially down narrow streets. Cars parked on either side of you, it can be a little bit stress-inducing, but it's not too bad. And of course, you do have that nice and high seating position, so you get a nice view of what's going on around you. So how do I look at this? Well, it's like the urban Suburban, the city version. And again, why is that a big plus? Because the second row room, it's identical to the Suburban. And that means it's the same from the C-pillars forward, though that does include what's under the hood, which is 6.2 liters of excess in this top trim. I've said it before and I'll say it again, there's a diesel engine that's a no-charge option at the top of the lineup here, and I would highly recommend it. Hell, it's only a $2,000 upgrade in the rest of the lineup, and I would still recommend it. Honestly, I just don't understand the point of going with this 6.2 liter gas engine when there's a better one available. That diesel is just amazing. It's a 3 liter straight six, and it is fantastic. It's quiet, it's smooth, and it's got tons of torque. Now, this one does too, but it is an absolute pig on gas. It's rated to burn more than 4 liters per 100 kilometers combined, more than that diesel, and it's pricey premium grade gas. Don't forget, GM recommends you put 93 octane in the tank to make the maximum 420 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque. That's the same as that diesel engine's output. That is a lot. It's going to be very expensive. And even when I drove that Suburban not too long ago, I couldn't come anywhere close to the official ratings. And I'm creeping pretty high already this week with some trips around town. So definitely be warned. Just doesn't really seem like the right choice to me when you have that amazing diesel just sitting right there. And again, in this high country trim, no charge option. Highly, highly recommended. I do have to say that power delivery is nice and smooth, tons of that linear torque when you roll on the throttle, and again, it does sound great. You don't even have to spin it over into sport mode. Let's say you want to go to pass someone. That is a thing of beauty. That's something you don't hear too often, especially in a vehicle like this. I absolutely love it, but I still don't think I'd want to live with it every day. Now, either engine, it doesn't matter. This thing can tow right around 8,000 pounds, and this one I'm driving does have the max tow package, so you get all kinds of extras, like upgraded cooling for the engine and transmission, as well as a built-in trailer brake controller down here by your left knee, and a few other things like blind spot monitoring that'll watch whatever you're pulling behind you, and a few extra camera views. Very cool stuff, and for the $600 it costs you, it is worth every penny. I also love that the controls for that stuff all down here by my left knee, with stuff like the 4x4 system or the air suspension so you can raise and lower this thing. I really dig the way it's set up. And I do have to say that I love that there is so many physical controls in here, all kinds of buttons and knobs, though I do have to say they look pretty cheap and childish, especially down here. All these radio and HVAC controls, not so crazy about them, but there are worse culprits, and there are these ones up here for the gear selector. Honestly, I don't understand why automakers keep trying to reinvent the wheel. There's nothing wrong with a good old-fashioned column shifter, or even one down on the console. I'd even prefer a rotary dial to these triggers and buttons. They're just not intuitive at all. Every time I get into this thing and I go to put it in drive, I'm reaching for something that isn't there, and then I have to remind myself, oh yeah, it's these buttons up here. They're not difficult to use, they're just dumb. But they are next to this infotainment screen, and I do dig that. It's a 10-inch unit, and it is very responsive. It does look a little milky and washed out, but I can live with it because it is so quick to respond. And I also love the layout. These circular icons, very easy to navigate here. And I like that Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are both standard, and they are wireless, and that's in every trim of this Tahoe. Something else that comes in every version of the Tahoe is an HD rear view camera. And then this top trim gets HD surround view cameras, and they are some of the best in the business. But you know what's the worst in the business? The fact that adaptive cruise control is optional instead of standard, and you can only add it to the top two trims. That to me is just mind-blowing. The way Chevy manages its advanced safety stuff in general just isn't all that great, because you do get forward collision warning with auto braking in every version of the Tahoe, but that's it. Then if you want blind spot monitoring or lane keep assist, you have to add that through pricey packages or more expensive trims like this one, and then you still have to pay for adaptive cruise on top of that. If you take a look at the Ford Expedition, which is this thing's most natural competitor, you get all that stuff in every version with the exception of adaptive cruise control, but that kicks in from the second trim and up. That puts it at a major advantage compared to this Tahoe, or yes, the Suburban. Something else that bugs me in here is that it doesn't necessarily look or feel like an SUV that's pushing into six-figure territory. Yeah, this leather's pretty nice, and I do dig this brown a lot. But see this wood over here? Yeah, that's not real. That's plastic. And the same goes with these controls. They're the same as what you get in the cheapest commercial fleet grade of the Silverado, and that doesn't sit right with me. But of course, you can get all kinds of features in here that you can't get in a truck like that. And they are great for a family hauler like this. You get heated and ventilated front seats, a heated steering wheel, heated second row seats, a tri-zone automatic climate control system. That's all good stuff. And then of course, this one has all kinds of extras like power deployable sideboards, this panoramic sunroof, even this powered center console that you can slide back so the kids can have access to the cup holders. Very cool stuff. And there's this awesome rear seat entertainment system. I dig it a lot. You can control it from up here, but they're both touch screens as well. And there's HDMI and USB ports back there, but you can also cast to it directly from your phone, which is very handy. If the kids want to watch Netflix, well, you can pull it up on your phone and throw it on back there. And this thing has a built-in Wi-Fi hotspot. Of course, that is subscription-based, but that is very handy on a road trip. But there's a big problem for me here. Yes, this has that fantastic ride quality, and that's probably the Tahoe's biggest selling point in my books. That air suspension, it comes with the deluxe package, but when you take a look at that Expedition, the value prop is heavily in Ford's favor. Because if you look at that thing, no, you can't get air suspension like this, but the top trim does come with adaptive dampers, as well as deployable sideboards, panoramic sunroof, even massaging front seats. And that means if you want to get stuff like a rear seat entertainment system in the tow package, well, you're going to pay 88 grand or so out the door for the Expedition Platinum. That's 8 grand less than this one, and it comes with added bonuses like massaging front seats. That's not a good look for this Tahoe, and that's something I would really struggle with. To recap, I like the maximized interior space of this new Tahoe, as well as the air suspension and the overall size of it. I don't like how expensive it is, the features it's missing for the money, or how thirsty this top trim's V8 engine is. So is this new Tahoe worth that extra 8 grand? Well, that is up to you to decide. But before you do, you're gonna wanna drive it back to back with the Expedition to see which one you like more. And the same goes with the Suburban if your loyalty is to the bow tie badge. But sometimes less is more, and I think you're gonna like what you find here. And scene. And subscribe! Don't forget to subscribe, guys! Subscribe!